do you deal with a slow week or a slow day or a slow month? We'll talk about that on this segment of the Gig Geezer. Today is May 1st, 2025. And if you're a first-time visitor of the Gig Geezer, thanks for coming by. And if you're a returning visitor of the Gig Geezer, thanks also for coming by. If you would not mind, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome comments in the section below. I'm going to say that today has been a slow day, and this week has been relatively a slow week. And I'll qualify what I mean by that right from the start. When things are really going, you notice a steady stream of opportunities that come to your phone, that you observe in your market, and you then have an opportunity to accept or bid on something, and you'll find out whether it's been assigned to you or not, or it's been booked. So I'm talking about specifically last mile gig delivery opportunities and brokered opportunities. You may also say that about your cash game opportunities, those opportunities that earn you cash, the ones that in which you provide individual services for. For me this week, there's been this tenor, this tone that suggests to me that it's been slow. And going over the week so far, on Monday, I talked about in this segment of the Gig Geezer, in which when I talked about getting a real ID card, I started the day with a cash game opportunity, and that was the only money earning opportunity that I had that day, because I also had a vision appointment, and then I had to go by the South Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles and get my real ID card. But if I were to observe what had been going on in the market this week, at least based on the apps, and then what I noticed on load boards, didn't see a lot of activity. So then Tuesday was my first day doing the dedicated route opportunity. Of course, it turned out to be my only day. So I was pretty much consumed by that most of the day, or at least 10 hours of the day. I had that dedicated route from when I left from warehouse to return to the warehouse. And then after that, I had a local light, or you can say a small catering opportunity that I completed as well. But even while I was out and where I was, the market that I was in didn't see a lot of activity. So, but then again, when you're doing something, you're doing things, you're making money, sometimes you kind of shrug it off. So then there were yesterday. Now, I had two money earning opportunities before noon yesterday. There was a chance for a third money earning opportunity in the afternoon, but I missed on it. I'm not saying that I missed in terms of swing and a miss. It was one where you can say I took the pitch for a strike. It was a strike right over the plate, and I took the plate. I took the pitch, and you can say strike three, you're out. I struck out looking at the plate. Could I say that yesterday could have been busy? It could have been. If I had taken up on that third opportunity, yes, it would have been a busy day for me. So then we talk about today. Actually, I had a brokered opportunity that was to go from the Greenville, South Carolina area to the Atlanta airport. I had agreed upon terms yesterday, but there was one concern that I had. I was made aware that there were 9 pallets. And I also noticed on the rate confirmation sheet, it would call for a 26-foot box truck. Now, hear me out. You would say that I would have stole up on an opportunity had I been able to do this. If I were able to have 3 of the 9 pallets be stacked, I could have accommodated that run. But I found out by email reply and phone conversation this morning around 8 o'clock, between 8 and 8:30 this morning before I left, the pallets could not be, they were unstackable. They were non-stackable type pallets. And I understand. I mean, I've done enough brokered opportunities to know that certain freight cannot be stacked, and it's clearly marked on the pallets that they cannot be stacked when being transported outside the country. Most cases, this is freight that's being being shipped abroad, or in this case, it was going to Canada. But it was going by plane. Now, I have a 16-foot box truck. That's the reason why I had asked about whether they could be stacked. The pallets could be stacked because I can handle 6 standard-sized pallets in my box truck. A 26-foot box truck can handle 12 standard-sized pallets. So then, it just so happened that I caught a break. No sooner than I got that email, one delivery opportunity came up, and I was able to accept it. And then, as I had gotten back to the Geezer compound, another delivery opportunity came up, and I was able to accept that. And so that kind of bailed me out of what could have been a really, really bad day. I still didn't earn I still didn't earn back all of what I missed on that brokered opportunity. Let's just say that I earned back about 84% of what I had agreed to on the brokered opportunity, and did not have to drive as many miles as I would have on that brokered opportunity. So take it for what it's worth. So then you say, well, how then is it a busy week? How then is it a slow week? Well, if I use a bowling analogy, there's a term called a field bowler. You go by feel, in that you know typically when you've bowled a good shot based on the way the ball comes off your hand. You just know. You just know by the way the ball comes off the hand. In fact, I will say at one time with my game, I knew by the time before I got to the foul line whether I was going to strike. I knew just by the way I got to the foul line whether I was going to strike or not. I could turn around and listen for the impact of the pins, and 9 times out of 10, I struck. So I say then, being a field bowler, you just know how the ball comes off the hand, and more times than not, you can turn around and just listen for the impact, and all 10 are in the pit. So that's kind of the way it is for me. You just have that feel about how things are going, whether you know that it's a busy week or not. And it's typically true. So that means then I've not seen a lot of opportunities on the load boards. I've not seen a lot of gig app opportunities. And I've not looked at many gig food delivery opportunities. In fact, I've seen some catering opportunities come across. In fact, I've probably seen a steadier stream of catering opportunities than I have anything else. And I turned down a number of them. In fact, I turned down one, and I'll give you the dollar amount. I turned down a $180 catering opportunity that was actually for this morning, and then turned around and turned down one that was for $86 because I was thinking that I had something set up with the brokered opportunity. Probably, that was my fault. But how then do you deal with when you determine that it's slow? How then do you deal with it? Here's where I think, number one, you always want to put yourself in a position where you always have options. I've talked about that on a few occasions in the past. What are your options? What options have you created for yourself? How have you diversified your earnings opportunities? And then there's always the other way of doing things, the enterprising. There's the enterprising part of yourself. You may just simply outright solicit cash game type opportunities. And what are cash game opportunities? Those are opportunities that obviously pay cash for services that you render um, by operating out of your Sprinter/cargo van or your box truck or your pickup truck. That's what I mean by cash game. I will say this much, that knowing too that, hey, in the Columbia, South Carolina metropolitan area, we're about to enter this region is about to enter into a traditional slow time of the year. Once the main university lets out, the semester's over, or basically when finals come around, which will be in a matter of days, things really, really, really slow down. And first people that kind of flood the gig economy space are the university employees. And then when the schools let out, the local school districts let out later in the month, they flood. They also flood, or they take to the gig apps as well. And so that's going to create some unwanted market saturation as well. Then there's also the kids. The kids who are old enough to work the apps or come out, they're gonna be on the apps as well, trying to make their little summer money. So you've got to have other things working for you. So for me, one of them is the cash game. I've talked a lot about the cash game, but the cash game has started to bail me out on a few occasions. In fact, a couple of weeks last month, the cash game was really my main driver during the week. Now, with respect to total money earned, that was a different number. The low board based opportunities and the gig app based opportunities still accounted for roughly 60% of the money that I earned last month. But I know that the slow times are going to come. And so I have to continue working at keeping myself in a position of where opportunities may come my way. So hopefully you see where I'm getting with how do you deal with the slower times. Now, for some folk, it could be an opportunity to hit the pavement and knock on doors, flip business cards, show your brochure. What I've done now with a brochure, I don't go around with paper brochures, but what I will do is text message or email them my brochure that's in a PDF or in a GIF or a JPEG file, and then I do flip business card. There's a couple other things that I'm working on as well, like that QR code. I've yet to do that, but you have to have a website, and that's another of my projects, is working on a website. So that's one of my that's one of my projects. That's one of my summer projects this year, is to continue to work on ways of marketing my services, my business enterprise. Does it all come into fruition like immediately? No, it typically doesn't, but eventually it does. And you see my hands are back like this because I just got off the freeway, and I'm like, less than 3 minutes away from the Geezer compound, and probably it for today. But hopefully you get something out of what I've shared with you in this segment, the Gig Geezer. I'll just kind of quote I'll just quote the interaction that took place between Mr. Sam Randall, who was a guest on my most recent live stream, I'm Speaking. He's the proprietor and owner of CMS Cargo Express. A viewer had gotten on him for not fully divulging how to find dedicated route contracting opportunities. And the viewer said that what he needed to have, he should have been the research. He should have been the research. He should have been the source. His reply was, well, you ultimately have to do the research. It's your business. You're the business person. You got to do the research. I'm not the research. I'm not that source. I'm just someone who shares certain information, but it's on you still. And so that's kind of how I viewed. I'm taking the approach with this segment of the Gig Geezer. I am sharing some things, and hopefully what I've shared to this point is something that may trigger your memory or kind of trigger you, for lack of better words, or inspire you or prompt you. That's probably the more appropriate word. Prompt you to use your creativity to use your creativity and cultivate yet another earnings opportunity, because that's what it's all about when you're in business. If you're not, I mean, it's a lot of this is about creativity. I can't say it no other way. A lot of it's creativity. It's kind of like writing to me. People ask, how do you write a book? Well, you just start writing. You start writing, and when you feel that you've got enough of a concept together, maybe you want to look into an editor, and then it's up to the editor to help make the copy better. I can tell you from experience, that's exactly what happened to someone whom I've known since 2008. He had like about 100,000 words of collected thoughts. And when I got finished with it, it was pared down to like 75,000 words. And it was a book that appeared on the bookshelves. And it was also a National Book Club selection of the month. So that's how you write a book. You write the thoughts down, and then at some point you try to surround yourself with the right people who will help you accomplish the goal. In business, what happens is that you surround yourself with the right team. Now, there are folk like me who don't always work well with team situations. That's not to say that's not to say I'm a difficult person to deal with, but at the same time, I know that I'm better suited working alone. But I also know that, hey, if I accept that reality, I've got to find ways of cultivating new income opportunities. If I am to remain viable, this is what I got to do. So that's all I have to share for this segment of the Gig Geezer. Again, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment or in any other segment, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I'm Inwood Lane. As always, may your grind and may your hustle continue.